about that. LT9 breaks the rock. Pretty cool for him. We talked about when we talked about the ACC kickoff how obviously he didn't get to attend that, but was the one that really kind of stood out as the performer through the summer. And man, I've talked about this a couple of times, but I have never felt like an offseason flew by this fast. Probably, again, it has to do with like baseball being really good and going far, and then ACC or conference realignment stuff, feels like it's an all-time fever pitch. So that has passed time a little bit. You've had court cases that feel like rivalry games going on. And so it feels like a quick offseason, but man, it is finally here. They are literally going to go out and practice later this week.
Yeah. So as you say that, I'm pulling up my countdown widget on my phone. 29 days until I leave for Ireland. That is insane. I need to get booking some stuff on a side note. But yeah, this offseason really has flown by. It's ever since the snub, I think all of, Nole Nation kind of has had a chip on their shoulder. Like, we didn't even get the chance that we deserved. And yes, I'm going to keep complaining about that. And I will never stop. I will always complain about it. So for those of you who hate listening, or even some Florida State fans are like, oh, get over it. No, I will never get over that. But this season is here. And we talked about it last week. I do think EA College Football being released is just going to expedite the wait time. It makes it that much easier. It's like a quick queue cheat code for to get to the season. But man, and playing week 0 helps as well, right? That's certainly something up there. But you'd love seeing Lawrence Sofili being the guy to be able to break the rock, right? He's the guy who came here during the Willie Taggart era. Could have easily said, "No, this isn't for me. Let me go somewhere else." He's a very talented player. He's made iconic plays. You think about that wheel route against Clemson where Florida State did end up losing the game, but where he's tackled, but his knee never goes down and he just twists his body and gets into the end zone. And he's just been, steady Eddie for Florida State. And that's what he will be this year as well. And I think he could play more of an amplified role, and it'll be interesting to see because you do have a stable of horses in that backfield. And that's probably your deepest unit on the entire team. You could make an argument for defensive backs. I'll go with running back. You just have so many good players, but to have a guy like that who's been in the system, who's been here for as long as he has been, and to kind of be the leader of that room. I think Roydell Williams might be the best running back on the team, but there's no doubt in my mind that Lawrence Sofili is the leader of that room. I don't think that's a question.
Yeah, I also think, I've speaking on Toafili, specifically, like I've heard really good things there. Like put on good weight, looks like a number one. Which if you have 2 number ones back there between him and Williams, bring it on. Certainly not gonna complain about that. Benson was amazing for you last year, but it certainly seemed like he got worn down a little bit toward the end of the year, and obviously didn't play in Charlotte. And so, you need a stable. And I think Florida State's going to lean on their running backs and. Yeah, bring it on. Like all about all of that. Who do you? We've talked about like what maybe concerns we have, what we're excited for, what we feel really confident in. Is there a name out there that I'm putting you on the spot? I didn't tell you about this, but is there a name out there that you're kind of, if you had to go out on a limb and predict like, oh man, this guy's going to step up big time and you're going to see some really good things out of him. You're going to see this guy kind of take the next step, whether it's in fall camp or just, kind of this year, but I'm thinking more like who elevates here in fall camp. Again, I didn't really give you a heads up on this, so I'm trying to delay and run my mouth so you can think, but hopefully you realize that's what I was doing for you. So you're welcome. But who you got? If not, I can think of one and then you can go.
Kentron Portier.
Ooh. Needed.
I just think he's been in the system for a while. You have a lot of unproven talent in the receiver room, and I think he's a guy that if he is healthy, he could be wide receiver 1, if not that number 2 guy that is just, 3rd and 6. You need a guy that's who you're going to throw it to. I just really think he's in for a big season. Again, if he's healthy, especially with Hill going down, I really expect a big year out of Kentron.
I think you need it. We talked a lot about, Malik Benson probably being, your closest thing to a number 1. I don't know if Hakeem is there quite yet. Hopefully he can get there during the fall. Destin Hill going down is a big deal. We've got guys that are returning though, and Kentron, Darian Williamson, obviously got Ja'Kai Douglas coming back. You've got a lot of potential in that room. You just need to see some of it capitalized. You need to see some of it kind of take the next step and go to the next level. And I do think, yeah, I mean, he's got to stay healthy and he's got to work on the drops. I mean, even in the spring game, you saw Kentron, kind of struggling with drops, and you were like, all right, what are we doing here? Like, this is your time to like step up and be that guy. And so, yeah, I mean, he would be huge if you could get that kind of play out of him, man. I really think that, I think offensive lines, I was asked about it yesterday on a radio show, but I think offensive line could, I think its floor is just being average, but it's got a ceiling to be really good. And I expect Washington to be really good. I expect, Smith
will be fine.
Yeah, very solid for you. But I'm looking at like 2 transfer guards, and I'm not guaranteeing they start or anything like that, but I could see TJ Ferguson and Richie Leonard both starting at guard for you this year, and
Great
both
name.
being really good. And, Gator fans like to get on, and TJ Ferguson is probably not even a good one to use because I think people do expect really good out of him. But, Gator fans like to get on Richie Leonard and say he wasn't very good. I mean, there's a reason he had the most snaps on their offensive line last year. He's very experienced, just didn't have a very good. I mean, they fired one of their they let one of their coaches go. I mean, he went to the NFL, but they wanted to move on from him. And then there was talk about like maybe letting the other guy go too. Like they're kind of just a dumpster fire over there. And I do think that with some better coaching and a little bit better development, I mean, he could be really good for the Noles this year. And that's not me guaranteeing that Richie Leonard is like a standout player. And I know that offensive line is maybe not the sexiest position to predict somebody to be really good, but I do think that if Florida State's going to get good play out of Washington, they're probably going to get pretty good play out of Smith. You've got the other side there with Byers, wasn't the best in pass blocking, but was really good in run blocking. But if you can get really good guard play, which I think you're going to get from Ferguson, and I feel somewhat confident about, Richie Leonard too. And then you also have Keandre Jones in there, a bunch of young guys that you've kind of had in the system for a couple of years. I think it's now, the floor is being average, but they could be like, I don't think the ceiling is great, but I think the ceiling is like pretty good. I think that there's a chance that the offensive line is pretty good, top 5-ish in the ACC. Yeah, I mean, if you're top 5 in the ACC, top 3, maybe even. If you're banging on the door at top 3 offensive line, you're going to have a really good year. You're going to give DJ plenty of time. You're going to open up holes for the running game, which I think they'll be really good run blocking anyway. But I think if you can get to that point to where you're good, I mean, you already have a top running back room in the league, probably like top 2 with Miami. You already have a top, you probably have a top 5 quarterback in the league. You have a top maybe 1 defense, potential in the league, top off, defensive line. I mean, if you add a really good offensive line to that, I know there's questions about running back and there's questions about how do you replace talent, but if your offensive line's really good too, that's where I think you could have a great year. So I don't know. I cheated and went with 2 guys, but maybe Richie Leonard and then, 1B is TJ Ferguson for me. All right, we'll get right back to the video, but several of you have messaged or asked on social media about our Patreon. It's a place where you can go and support the content that we make. You can join this channel as a subscriber. YouTube takes an astronomical amount of that, and so we try to direct people over to Patreon. If you're already a member of the YouTube channel and you pay for that monthly, you don't have to go switch, but if you want to, you can. You can go sign up for our Patreons, patreon.com/DFNS. Great way to support, great way to get access to our Discord and the private channels in there. And then also, obviously, you're going to get inside info and an exclusive kind of look behind the scenes when we have that available for different aspects of FSU football, from recruiting to just kind of whatever we're talking about at that time. Patreon.com/DFNS. The link is in the description. If you'd like to go support, we'd love to have you join us.
Yeah, no, I like those picks. And if you're going to have the season you want to have, those are guys that you want to be in that conversation, right? If again, we go back to who Florida State is bringing to Charlotte, it's the trenches, right? That's where you win and lose games. And when you think about the teams you're going to have to beat, Clemson is phenomenal in the trenches. So is Miami. We can crack all the jokes we want about Mario Cristobal. He has built a dominant offensive and defensive line. Ruben Bain has been cooking me in EA College Football 25. I cannot run a jet sweep on him. So that tells me he's definitely going to be good this year. But all jokes aside, yeah, like if Richie Leonard and TJ Ferguson end up being the players that we expect them to be, that we want them to be, then yeah, that's a great sign, because DJ is an experienced, seasoned quarterback. And if he has time, And if Roydell Williams, Lawrence Toafili, and that stable of backs we have, have creases, they don't even need holes. Just give them the creases. Yeah, I think we're in really good shape. I do think, we're going to take a step back from last year, guys. We are not going to go 13-0. I would love it. I'm not saying we can't. I'm just saying I don't think it'll happen. But the goal is to get to Charlotte. Because if you get to Charlotte, that is your first playoff game. Win that game in Bank of America Stadium, and you are in the college football playoff. No committee can leave you out at that point. And I think this team is built to do that, TJ.
Have we read all the rules? Have we read all the rules and make sure there's not an asterisk somewhere that I never heard the injury rule before last year? Have you ever heard it before last year? So I want to agree with you on that, but yeah, I think you just probably need to go 13-0. Like you just need to go ahead and get that done. So no, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of talent. You're gonna have to replace a lot of talent. There's different skill sets though, and DJ can't do some of the things that Jordan did, and Jordan can't do some of the things that DJ is going to be able to do. And so how do you balance that? How do you manage that? I do think it's interesting. Neither one of us picked anybody on the defense. And that's, I think, because not that there couldn't be guys fill in and step up, right? But yeah. I mean,
I think the defense is going to be so good.
You kind of know what you got. Yeah, like the defense is going to be good. Our corners. I don't know the rest of the ACC's roster well enough to make this prediction. I'd assume that Clemson's are up there, just based on the way that they recruit. But we have to have maybe the top pair of corners in the country, and then you add in Earl Little at nickel as well. Shaheem Brown at safety is one of the top safeties in the country. I think Conrad Hussey is going to be really good too. Ashlyn Barker is going to be really good. Defensive line, I think we have the best starting four defensive line in the league. I'll put that up against anybody in the league. Miami's included.
Yeah.
Depth, I do worry about some. I'll be pretty honest with that. Like I don't know if we're going to be able to rotate as much, which kind of wears guys down through the year. Or I think the drop off at the depth positions can, it's not going to be like last year's was. But I still think that the defensive line is one of the top 5 in the conference, maybe top 3. And then, like I said, the starting 4 really, really good. Linebacker maybe a little bit of a question. I think you'll get a good play to Lundy, and then who kind of steps up beside him. But nobody mentioned defense because I think we feel really, really good about it. And that's a good spot to be in for sure.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We go back to the chance about firing Adam Fuller. And all he's done is slowly but steadily and surely built a damn good defense. And I have no concerns about the defense as long as Adam Fuller is our defensive coordinator. We've never had the most talented. Yeah, we've had some badasses like Jermaine Johnson and Jared Verse, Patrick Payton, what he should be this year. But he's just slowly but steadily built a really respectable, really good defense. And I would argue, TJ, that after Jordan Travis went down last year, that against North Alabama, that Florida State had a top, I'd say 4 defense in the entire country. Like they were playing so good. What they did in Charlotte will never get the respect it deserves because of what happened the next morning. But man, that performance in Charlotte was so good. What Braden Fisk and Jared Verse did. And I know they're gone, and that's fine. But the architect of that defense is still here. And I don't know how much longer we're going to have him. I do think he will get a head coach opportunity in the near future. And he should take it if he gets it, because you don't know when those opportunities will come again or will they not come. But, man, I love what our defense is. I love our personnel. We've talked about it. Our front 4 is extremely good if they stay healthy. That's the caveat, because the depth, you mentioned it, could be an issue. But linebackers only position there's a couple question marks at. But in today's college football, if you're going to have a question mark at any position on defense, you want it to be at linebacker because of what you have in front of them and behind them. And I'm really excited to see this defense this year.
Yeah, you look at. Yeah, especially when you run a 4-2-5, right? And you have less linebackers on the field than any other position. So, yeah, defense going to be really great. Super excited for it. And like you said, yeah, Adam Fuller, I can't imagine he's around incredibly, too much longer. A couple of years ago, people would have said, like, good, get him out, he stinks. And the way that he has, every year the defense has gotten better and better and better. And statistically, efficiency-wise, they have just continued to get better. You talked about the Florida game. or you talked about the Louisville game, but the Florida game, they I think Florida had a lead with just over 20 minutes to go. They had a 1-point lead with just over 20 minutes to go. So a little over 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. And from that time on, so like the last 20 minutes of the game, Florida had -3 total yards.
Yeah.
Like a third of the game, Richie, a third of the game, more than 20 minutes, a third of the game, Florida had -3 yards over the last 20 minutes of the game. Like I couldn't even imagine how frustrated I would be as a fan if I had a lead and then like at home, you got a lead, you're playing a backup, you're playing pretty well, you've held Florida State down, you can't muster one more yard the rest of the way. Like you have -3 yards. And yeah, the defense was absolutely on a different level. And then, yeah, same thing in Louisville. So